What's up, y'all? Welcome to Storytime. I'm Suge. This is presented by Suge Me the Mooney. Um, so today, we actually are going to get into our first um requested story time, and actually came on the heels of my story time where my supervisor actually punched a patron in our establishment. So, uh, mutual coworker and one of my, best friends, I consider him family. He actually requested for me to tell a story. Um, actually kind of goes hand in hand with that story. Um, so like I said, that place. This was when I was like 17, 18 years old. So it was between the summer of my following my junior year of high school, going into the senior year, and the summer of my senior year up until I had to leave to go to college. So I started working for this place, and I always told most of the people I worked on me, like, you know, you're gonna go to, no matter what jobs you have, like there's always gonna be, somebody you don't like, or somebody you dislike, or somebody that gives you a hard time and stuff like that. And in trying to remember the story because it was so long ago, I kind of had to like tell the story to myself. And I kind of went through each of my jobs, and like some of them I didn't really have anybody I disliked like that, but for the most part, every job it's always like that one guy or that one girl, and that you encounter that you just don't like working with. So we started off um working at this place, and there was this guy like there was this guy there, one of the supervisors. So the structure of the company was, or the structure of the location was, yeah, like the manager, he was kind of like really there, really, or if he was there, like he was in real early and then left real early. So I was like a close-in person, so I hardly ever saw him. And then you had two assistant managers. One of them, actually brought me in. Shout out if you're watching this. And then I had a couple of, they call them shift supervisors or shift leads. One of which, like I said, one of the people that I got cool with, and is one of my best friends because I'm a brother, and the person I requested this. Another one was the person involved in that fisticuffs in a previous episode. Um, and there was another um young lady that was also a supervisor. We got along really good. And then there were two other supervisors, and they happened to be brother and sister. And it was interesting because when I first got there and I looked at the schedule, because this was before, like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people now, you could look online for your schedule, or, you took a picture of the schedule and stuff like that. So the schedule was posted somewhere and you take a picture of it. Back at that time, like, your phones didn't have that great quality of, like, photography. So I'd have to like write down my shift. So every week you look at this, posted up schedule, see what time you worked, when you worked, blah 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 blah. So it had all of these different people. When I first got there, it was two. And about a week after, like, I started, another one came in, the little sister. So it was like a brother and sister that were the supervisors to begin with, and then the little sister, she started. By the next year, like, actually two more, another brother and a sister, like their parents must have been, bored. because it was like fucking like rabbits. I've never seen anything like that. Nor had I ever seen a company where they had, so many relatives working with each other at the same time. Like any other job, like I've been in, like you'd have to like if you brought in like your brother or sister, like they would have to work at a different location. The only time you see something like that is like if like their parents own the establishment. And this was like a corporate company. We sold ice cream. It was fun. Um, but it started off with two. The sister, um, she seemed fine. Like I ain't gonna be lie to you, I had like a little crush on her. When I first came in, because like I thought she was like cute and she kind of like looked like the type of girl like I liked. Um, but that didn't went nowhere. That's neither here nor there. But I'm just giving a little background. And then the little sister, like she was cool. We got along well because we were both like the newest people there. But obviously, she had the added advantage of her older brother and sister working there. So the brother, uh, we actually were located, as I said before, in like Times Square area. So all around like the Midtown area and different areas of Manhattan, like people would request us to like cater ice cream for like work meetings and stuff like that. So things that were within walking distance, like we used to have to like push like a cart with the ice cream in it. Um, if it was like really far, we would catch a cab and carry the ice cream in a cooler and carry it back. And sometimes it was fun, sometimes it wasn't. But I remember like he used to give me like a hard time, because I was new and I didn't know nothing about like kid. Like this was my literal first job. I'm like a 17-year-old kid. Like I'm the first time working. So he used to give me like a hard fucking time. And it's another thing that I carried on with me when I work other places. Like if you talk to Mike, like Mike will tell you, or my thing with Mike and other coworkers that I supervise is like I always had like I can't speak for anybody else, but like anybody I came in, I used to have like all the patience in the world and try to get them on because my feeling is like nobody comes into a new job like and is like employee of the month the first day. Like everybody was new at some point, so you have to give them that benefit. Like I said, with my the job I had for many years that I later on met Mike at and Darnell. When I came in there, like our manager and our staff had such a welcoming vibe to them that I really got the hang of things like really, really quick because everybody took their time and they understood like there would be areas where you were lacking. There are things that you won't know because you're new, and it's a lot of people, with coworkers, new ones, they always get frustrated. I don't know if it's a thing with, patience and stuff like that. Um, that they don't uh give them like the requisite amount of like patience. Again, patience, that's the word. Like my thing is every single job, everybody was new at some point. So I don't understand the benefit of giving somebody a hard time. I think it's more beneficial if you're patient with that person, you try to get them up to speed in a teachable um way and a very I want it don't even got to be friendly, just in a courteous way. Like, all right, all right, you're doing that wrong, but I'm not gonna yell at you for doing it wrong, nor am I gonna be mad at you for doing that wrong. Yeah, it's a little frustrating for me that I have to like go out of my way to help you, but to help you, it helps you as well as it helps me because if you're up to speed or you get up to my level, like it's gonna make things easier for me. So, he used to give me like a hard time with that. So we got off on the wrong foot. And I just knew I was like every day, like I knew I hated this guy. But like the thing I found was that a lot of supervisors, like I was a closing guy, so what I found is like a lot of guys, the supervisors for the most part would spend a lot of time in the back, um, because they had, people had their phones, so you're texting people, and back then like you didn't have like Twitter and stuff like that, so people was just like texting or on like AOL Messenger and stuff like that in the back, napping. I don't even know what they were doing back there. But my first month or so, like I'm here thinking like people is, you know, I don't know what the supervisor does. I just know like, motherfuckers expect me to be on the floor scooping ice cream and, ringing people up and shit like that, and then cleaning before we go home. So I never really paid attention to it until the gentleman I discussed, my supervisor in the last um in the previous episode of this, where another supervisor, like me and him were working like on a Saturday or Sunday. It was like a slow day in the afternoon. um and it was just like the two of us, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, yo, we don't got no supervisor, and it's our first time working together, but like we'd basically been talking for a while. And like, he was from Jamaica, and I'm from St. Thomas and Trinidad, so we're both from the Caribbean. So we kind of like got on there, and kind of we're chit chatting about shit like that. And I was like, all right, this is a cool dude, but the other supervisor left, and I'm like, yo, we don't got no like supervisor. And he was like, no, like I'm the supervisor, like, yeah. And I'm sitting there like, really, like, all right, but you're out here. I'm like, I'm used to like all the supervisors just be in the back. Like, you don't got shit you got to do in the back. It's like, no, none of them got shit to do in the back. Like, they just be in the back not working. Like, and I'm like, wow, and it like blew my mind. And he was like, oh yeah, like, they just don't be working. Like, he was like, I can't do that shit, cause that's something with me too. I'm just like, I'm the type of person that, you see people, like, you're driving and you see people like doing shit, and you're like, yo, like, all the time, and you're like, yo, like, if I did that, like, I would get stopped by the cops. Maybe I should do it. But then you think in your head, it's just like, I bet you the one time I do it, that's when the cops are here and I get a ticket. So that was my idea. So that was like what he thought. I went down. So that was our day. So then I realized like it wasn't their job to be out in the back, like not doing nothing. So time went by. Um, I worked more often than not with him, or I worked with my other friend, or I worked with this other young lady I was a supervisor that I was cool with. Um, and we were good. So then here's where the things get crazy. So full disclosure, like this whole family, they were from like uh so Latin, Central Latin American country, whatever. So they spoke Spanish. Um and my pal, like, here's kind of like the catch 22 of the thing. Like, I'll complain about like this whole family working here, but like two of my best friends, my one that was a supervisor, and then my other best friend, both of them I consider family, like my brothers. They were Dominican, but they, their outward appearance was like black, and they didn't speak with like a Spanish accent or a Hispanic accent. They both talk like how I talk, but the older one, he never spoke Spanish. The younger one, like, he'd speak Spanish to, like, if a customer came in and they didn't speak English, like, he was bilingual, and he was more in tune with his Hispanic side. So he taught the customers in Spanish. So it came a point where one of the people, they, like, him and her got into it, and she walked over to one of the other people and kind of like was talking shit about him in Spanish, but not realizing like he spoke Spanish. So he was calling him like a dumbass and all kinds of shit. But he heard it. but he didn't say nothing. So that was like his one thing, and I always like admired that part about him. Like he was just like, nah, you know what? Like I hear you. So now I know, like, cause for me, like you talking shit in Spanish about me. Like I don't speak Spanish, so I wouldn't know. But him, he's like, all right, like nah, like I know you be talking shit in Spanish. So the one assistant manager that was there, like it was two. The one that brought me in, um, and then another one. She came towards the end of the first summer I was working there, and it was kind of like clicked up. And I'm not even really gonna lie to you. It was like the one assistant manager, this whole like family. Um, and at that point, like they brought in like another brother and sister. In there, uh, this other girl, and then you kind of had like the one sister that came in after me. Like she was neutral because she was dating my boy, the one supervisor, so they was together. But then I had another boy that came in later on, and he was dating one of the girls, so he was kind of like in the middle too. So it was kind of on one side. So and then like basically it was like everybody else and then them. So what they used to do was, let's say they were supposed to be there from like 7 to like 4, or be there like from like, yeah, like 7 to like 4 o'clock, and they would leave. They would get there at 7, do whatever they would count as work, and then leave like 1 hour early, 2 hours early, sometimes even three. And then sometimes they would call somebody if like one of their friends was still working, and have them punch them out. Because we had like a punch system, which was like, I can't remember if it was like our birthdays or like the last four of our social, but it was like four numbers. So you just hit that person. I was like, yo, put in 1, 2, 3, 4 for me, like so I could clock out. But this is like hours after they left. Or what they would do is say like, oh, like to their assistant manager, like, oh, like I left, I forgot to clock out, blah 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 blah. Can you fix my hours? And anybody who ain't working with real retail, this is what you call time theft. And it's actually like a fireable offense, and in some cases, like like if companies wanted, they could like press charges on you because it's theft. So that's one thing that they used to do. And he was synonymous with. And then obviously, like another instance of the time theft was the just sitting in the back, not doing shit while everybody else worked, and then coming out when it's time to lock the doors. While everybody else cleans and stuff like that. So we kind of like made us think about it. And the guy that punched the customer, I said he came back and he wasn't of right mind. That was one of the things like he would like be angry about, because it was he was like, yo, they're getting away with bullshit. So fast forward to the next year, my senior year, I actually like applied for a I actually applied for a scholarship at my church, and I received it, a scholarship to go to school. And I had to attend a ceremony, with the people that were given the scholarship to receive it. So I usually worked on the weekends. So what we had was like this calendar in the back, and you would just write in your name. So it'd be like Suge off. I put it on there, and the one guy, like I said, that was my friend, but he was dating one of those people. Like him and her requested a day off after I did. But at this time, their assistant manager was doing the schedules, even though like I had requested my stuff first. So I come back, look at the schedule, and they have me working that same day. And I'll be honest with you, like I tried to get somebody to like switch with me, because if I worked in the day, I would be straight. But this place used to close like at midnight on the weekends, so it would close at midnight, and then it would take like an hour to clean and close the store after we close. And then if you know the New York subway system is shit, so it'd take like at least an hour and a half to get back home. And in order to attend the ceremony, I had to be at the 8 o'clock service. It just wasn't feasible for me to close. So I'm like, all right, like if I could come in early, I would. Nobody wanted to switch with me. So how I felt was like I exhausted all my options. I thought the best thing to do was just call into the store and be like, yo, listen, like I'm not coming in tonight. Like I told y'all I wasn't gonna be able to work today. Y'all put me on a schedule. Whatever. Y'all gotta figure it out. But luckily, like the person who answered when I called was, the assistant manager that brought me in. So I called and I tell her like my story. I'm like, yeah, like I requested off. They still put me on, but listen, I really can't be in there. Like I gotta get up early tomorrow. Like it's not gonna work out. And she was like, all right, hold on. She looked at the calendar, get back. She was like, yeah, I see that. Suge off, blah blah blah. Church thing. She was like, nah, like don't worry about it. Don't come in. So I don't. And then my man sets me up because he happened to be working that day too. And he's like, yo, like he calls me up like like I told you I was supposed to be there at 4, so he calls me up at like 6, and he was like, yo, like you coming into work? And I'm like, no, I already called him and told him I'm not coming in. And it was like, well, like this guy doesn't know that, the one brother that I didn't like. So I was like, well, that's his problem, whatever. So he's like, this guy is looking for me to make matters worse for them. I want to say for me, like somebody else also didn't come in that day that was scheduled, so it was kind of like shorthanded. So ironically enough, like whereas old boy thought he was probably gonna like be chilling in the back, he probably had to be on the floor, so that probably irritated him even more. So my friend, he calls me back and he's like, yo, like this dude's here talking crazy. He's like talking shit about me, shit about the other guy that didn't show up, and said he's called. And that's the other thing that was part of it. Like, dude was like a wild, like kiss ass to the manager, the store manager. So he was like, oh, like, this is my friend telling me what this guy's saying. He was like, oh, the manager wants to see them two. Next time we work, he's firing us, blah, 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 blah. So you know, I'm not like worried, but at the same time, it's like my first job. So you're still kind of like on edge. So I went, didn't think nothing of it. Went to church the next day, got my scholarship. Shout out Butler Memorial. And I think I had to come into work. I was scheduled to work on the following day, which was like the Monday or the Tuesday or something like that. And I come in and I see the manager that he said was gonna fire us. So I'm like, hi, insert name. And he's like, oh, hey, Suge. And and I'm sitting there and I'm like, the moment that happened, I kind of like relaxed because I'm like, bro, if like he was gonna like fire me, like the first shit he would do that first day is come in like say something. So we kind of had like a little back and forth, for the next like couple months, and out of nowhere for some reason, like I think that's what it was. Like one of the meetings, I went to a Catholic school, and our school used to march in the St. Patty's Day parade down in Manhattan, and you have to wear your uniform. And it just so happened that same day I had they had a scheduled meeting at work. Like it was a couple hours after the parade, so I showed up in my school uniform, and I think he was like, "Oh, like you went to that school?" It's like I went to that school too. Just like so, I still think like this dude is a fucking prick, but I'm saying, we kind of like coexisted off of like that. So this was like March. So like going into the summer months, like I guess it was brought up like, like the supervisors had to be on the floor. They're gonna do that sitting in the back shit no more. So he stopped for like a month, and then he started doing it again, and he started doing more and more bullshit, and like I started to get into it with the other people too, because mind you, like it's maybe like 12 to like 15 people working at the store at a time, and five of them was like siblings. So you had to deal with, if you had to deal with one, you had to deal with two, blah 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 blah. Like you'd have to deal with like one or two of them like every shift you was working. And one of the times it was like I kind of like took, I won't even lie, like I kind of like took out my frustrations on like the other siblings off of this dude because I was getting pissed. And the one sister that was there when I started, and then the other brother and the other sister, one of the older sisters, not the younger sister that I was like cool with. Like I was working with them and maybe like two other people. So, at the end of the night, everybody had like their task or whatever. So, I kind of knew, like I felt like it was like some bullshit because they wanted me to do like one of like the harder tasks, and they had like the sister, and the sister didn't speak English or couldn't speak English. Um, they had her doing something like easy, but had me like mopping out the store or something that was like harder work, and I was just like, nah, I'm doing what she was doing. I think like what she was doing was like wiping on the counter and like wrapping stuff up. I'm like, I'm doing that. So I started doing it, and then she's like still wiping, and like I try to tell her, I'm like, nah, I'm doing this shit. Like, you asked them for something else to do, cause like I'm not mopping out there, blah 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 blah. Like I'm young, so I'm like rebellious. And she walks off and starts talking to the sister, um, some shit in Spanish. So going off of like the situation with my friend, where it was like they didn't know he spoke Spanish, they just assumed because he was like dark skinned and looked black that he wouldn't know what they were saying. So that's the first shit that popped in my head. So I get like enraged, and I'm like, I walk up to him, I'm like, yo, if you got some shit to say to me, like say that shit in English, like don't talk shit about me in Spanish, like, because clearly you're talking shit. And we had like a little bacchanal, whatever, whatever. And then I realized like the next day I had to work with the same set of people, but I hit up my assistant manager when I went home, and I was like, yo, like this is what happened at work. It's bullshit. Like you got like these brothers and sisters working here, and like they're doing all this extra shit. Da da da. Da. So it kind of like fucked up my shit because I was supposed to close. So when we closed, I used to leave. I would leave Manhattan like 2 o'clock in the morning, get home at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But it was cool because the next day, like I didn't have to leave my house until like 2 or 3 in the afternoon to be there for 4 or 5 o'clock. So I hit up my assistant manager, the one that brought me in, and I told her the whole story. And she was like, "All right, listen, da da da, like let me look at the schedule. Or all right, you're closing not like coming at 11, and you're gonna work 11 to 4 or some shit like that. I'm not gonna have you closing with them because it's clear like they're doing some bullshit." So that fucked me up because then I had to wake up like two. I only got to sleep for like 2 hours, and I came to work the next day, and I'm tired of shit. But then I got it in my head, this idea, because I would carry around this like notebook. I take the notebook to school, take it, it'd always be in my book bag. And when I was on the train to and from school or on a train to and from work, I'll have this notebook in my bag, and I'll write down like my movie ideas or my TV show ideas and sketches and stuff like that. So what I did was I made a dedicated area in the book where every shift that I had to work with this guy, I would write down like the bullshit that they did. And after a couple of weeks, I let my two friends know, and like my one friend who they were brothers, but the younger one, like we used to go to like baseball games and stuff like that. So we usually we were Yankee fans, so we'd always like talk baseball and shit. So this was like 2008, so it was only a couple years after that Mitchell report came out, where it listed all the people that did steroids and the people that had, like snitched on them doing steroids and stuff like that. So my man, he coined the phrase. He was like, "Yo, like, what are you doing? You doing a Snitchell report?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" And the last straw was it had a day. Like I said, he kind of like stopped. Like the block kind of got hot with the sitting in the back and not doing work. Um, while you were supposed to be supervising and being on the floor. Um, he had stopped that, but then he started it again. So it had this girl that they borrowed, um, like picked up a shift that worked on another store that picked up a shift at our store, and him and her were like in the back. And it was one of these days, and like summer used to be our busiest like time because everybody's in the city. You got all these tourists, all this stuff. So the line used to be out the door. So we were like undermanned because supervisor in the back, also somebody who's supposed to be on the floor working is on the back in the back too. Um, so I wrote about that, and then I told my manager, and she was like, "Yo, like this is outrageous. Like I'm calling the manager, and we're gonna have a meeting." So like I was like, I bet I got all the receipts on this dude. Like, I'm getting him the fuck out of here because I'm tired of him. Like, I put up with him for like, almost 2 years. Like, enough is enough. And since they call it like the Snitchell Report, I told my two guys, I was like, yo, I'm about to type it up and like print it out and bring like this stack of like papers to put this dude on blast. So yeah, the meeting, and I'm coming up to the meeting with my book, with this thing, and I'm about to be like, all right, like hand that shit to the store manager, let him read that joint, whatever, whatever. And somehow, some way, like bro got like boy caught wind of it, and he knew like he was basically like dead to rights. And let's say like the meeting was at like 2 o'clock. This dude came in at like 12 o'clock and just quit because he knew he was like, all right, like the jig's up. Um, so that's like the story of the Snitchell Report, and he probably like, damn, like, sure, you're a snitch, and like, you know, but that's what you feel. That's what you feel. I don't give a fuck. It ain't dry snitching to me. Like dry snitching is where you're a snitch. Like, all right, this shit don't got you don't benefit nothing from this, and it ain't nothing against you, but you just choose to like tell on somebody. Like, nah, bro. Like, listen, if you go to work every day and you're the subordinate and somebody is over you, and that motherfucker is supposed to be on the floor working with you and is not, but is working the same amount of hours as you are and getting paid like a couple dollars more an hour as you are just to come to work and just fucking chill while you're busting your ass and you don't find nothing wrong with that, like something's wrong with you. And if that's you, if you're cool with that, that's fine. And at the same time, too, the other thing with like the time manipulation where they would have people clocking them out or have their hours adjust where, you know, they get paid for 8 hours and then they'd work 4 hours. And as I said before, half the time they're sitting in the back not doing shit. So it's like they probably only actually worked like 2 hours and they was getting paid for like eight. And if you're cool with if somebody's doing that shit at your job and you're cool with that, then you're a dumbass. Um, But I just like I had enough, man. And if you ask anybody that worked under me, that's the one shit I always used to get at any job that I had a supervisory role in, because I learned from that situation where I learned from that situation and that if you're a supervisor, I just doesn't mean that like you're like a taskmaster. It means like you're the person in charge. Like you're supposed to lead by example, basically. And I think it was a great learning experience being like a 17, 18-year old, like my first job that I had that experience where, I learned how not to be in a supervisor position and or how not to demonstrate authority in a supervisor position, lead by example. um if you're supposed to be working on the floor with people, you got to put people in the best positions to succeed. And that's the one thing people always would tell me when I'm supervising them. They'll be like, damn, like, Suge, like you work harder than all of us. And I'm like, yeah, because at the end of the day, like I'm accountable for everybody here. This is my shift. So I have to make sure everything goes smoothly, make sure y'all guys got everything you need, and make sure that I'm not just sitting here watching y'all work, watching you guys work. And time manipulation shit, I always thought was whack. Like, that's some, like, really, like, slimy gutter shit. Like, I mean, not even from, like, a company perspective. It's just like, I mean, like, if I'm working every week and I'm making 35 hours and I worked hard as hell for all of them 35 hours, and then somebody else is getting 40 hours, but they only actually worked like 15 out of them 40 hours, like it's fucked up. I mean, like that's from the like peer perspective, like the coworker perspective. Like from a company perspective, it's messed up, but I'm not on the side of the company. I'm always on the side of me. So this has been Storytime with Suge, the Snitchell Report.